extra time. My name's Martin Murphy and I'm joined by Alan today. Sadly, no James. James is winging his way back to the States. I don't know, he might have arrived by now, I guess, but I know it's always in the finest style. You know, when he's not travelling with his family, I know that he likes to really look after himself and, you know, just relax and be, you know, well treated in such a long journey. So fair play to you, James. How's things with you, Alan?
Yeah, fine. I'm absolutely golden. It's beautiful weather again here in Sheffield. Nice, been out for another nice walk today. But yeah, just hoping he gets back all right. I mean, he does have another persona online where he talks about his, macroeconomics and market dynamics and all that sort of thing. And I'm just a bit worried that if that, that persona comes to light with the authorities in the US, he's going to end up detained somewhere in Guantanamo Bay or something. That would be tragic, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know they
there'd be
do
some
like to
there'd be some
censor.
corners of the Timtonet that would be rejoicing at that, I'm sure, but not here, of course, obviously.
Yeah, there was somewhere in Central America where I don't know what the internet's like in those sort of cells, but I suspect, you know, he may have difficulty joining us if that's the case. But in all honesty, I hope the journey's gone well, James, and look forward to you joining us again next week. So I suppose, really, Alan, you and James had gone over the result up in Perth, you know, at great length. Obviously, a disappointing result, but I thought maybe we could pick into it a little bit, maybe more generally. Found it interesting, really, that you know, Brendan had come out after the match and. Maybe a bit unlike him, you know. I'd talked about the players and maybe a lack of intensity, which you could maybe read as lack of effort with some people, or maybe issues with attitude and so forth. So I wondered, in terms of the numbers, how did it look in terms of maybe pressing and so forth in areas of the pitch that we played in?
Yeah, so yeah, listen, don't want to dig into the game again. Nobody wants that. If you want a full rundown, breakdown of what we thought of the game, go back to Tuesday's
Hell yeah.
pod, and you can relive it in all its technicolor and glory. I'm still interested and fascinated a little bit by more the reaction and the actual post mortem itself, not the actual game itself. And I've just been, I suppose, reflecting on that a little bit more. Um, One of the pieces I had to think about writing, maybe for the site for huddlebreakdown.com, was about this whole notion. James and I always bang on about attribution, and what does that mean? It means, so I was actually a geographer by training, and one of the things I enjoyed about it was human geography as opposed to physical geography, was these multivariate models, which sounds a bit grand, but really what it was is looking at why stuff is as it is in the world and trying to attribute the reasons for why that is. And that's basically explaining why stuff works as it does, was mainly what kind of geography was about. And essentially that's its attribution. It's saying, well, why was this factory built here? You go through the social, political, economic reasons, cultural, all that sort of stuff. And and basically, I suppose, do try and bring that same kind of heuristic, I guess, to looking at football. And this is, I think, it's far more interesting when you lose. Obviously, there's usually far more to say and far more to get your teeth into. And so, this idea of attribution, I think, is something which is in my mind. And one of the things that football supporters tend to do is, in my observation, and I'm sure I do it to some extent too, before I go back and really study the game, is you tend to blame that which you don't like anyway. I mean, you don't like Brendan Rodgers, you'll blame the manager. If you don't like Rio
Yeah.
Hatate, you'll blame Rio Hatate. If you don't like, the goalkeeper, you'll blame the goalkeeper, or whatever it might be. There's a lot of that goes on in terms of it. But what I guess what we try and do is kind of really try and break down the different components of that attribution, and try and kind of get a sense of what were the most compelling reasons why. So, for example, you know, an easy piece of analysis to say would be, well, the goalkeeper made 9 saves. He was amazing, right? But then you look at the post-shot XG, and the post-shot XG was something quite low, like 1.3. It's like, yes, he made 9 saves, but none of them were very difficult. And we kept kicking the ball straight to him. So it's like, yes, the goalkeeper did really well and he had a great game, but that wasn't probably the reason that we lost. It more suggests that it was something to do with bad finishing. I'm not saying I'm not trying to solve for this game. I'm just saying that's an example of where you could go down one route based on some data in terms of your attribution, but actually, it's actually telling you something very different. So I'm guess I'm just thinking out loud on this. I might put some of this down on paper and use the St Johnstone game as an exemplar of that, because as I say, it's far easier and far more rich and in context to dissect a defeat in that spirit than it is a victory. But I just also wanted there's a few other things that occurred to me during the week, really, just moving away from the St Johnstone game, but thinking about really why, more about the reaction more than the game itself, and why was there such a sort of severe reaction to it. Um, and it got me thinking a little bit about Liverpool, actually, and in England, Liverpool are in a similar situation to Celtic. Really, it's been apparent for some time that Liverpool were probably going to win the league, but at the same time, they've kind of, they got knocked out of the Champions League. They got, they lost in the League Cup final. They lost at the weekend, I think, to Fulham. They've had a few stutters, and people are going, oh, there's discourse along the lines of, well, they're not going to be like a really great champion, and are they winning just because Arsenal don't have a striker, and Manchester City have all got old together, and Manchester United are garbage, and Chelsea are not there yet. They can't work out, their best team, and all these reasons. A bit like sort of Leicester 2015 sort of thing. It's like very bit mean spirited. But I think, whilst there might be elements of truth in all of that, bringing it back to Celtic, I think there's a little bit of. It's been clear for a long time that Celtic are going to win the league. I mean, we've seen at the other side of the city that a Rangers side forced into living within its means, forced to put a team on the park that matches their revenues. Is not has not been a very consistent side, and none of the other teams in the SPFL are capable yet of a consistent challenge. Aberdeen fell away. Hibs started so badly. They're fantastic at the moment. Hearts are kind of going through this evolution under the Bloom sort of database watchful eye. I know these teams may well get better, actually, and I hope they do, but not this season. And so it's been apparent for a while that Celtic are going to win the same as it is Liverpool. And I just think sometimes there's almost this need to fill the void of the conversation with, well, let's pick it. If Celtic do stumble, or like Liverpool have, well, let's pick it all apart and let's pick them apart, because you've almost got like, there's no other narrative. There's no like jeopardy really in the title race. There's no sort of, oh well, these are coming up on the rails, and if it's the next game we just got to win it. And if we're grinding out 1-0s in a close title race, you wouldn't be worrying about performance that much. But it does tend to focus on performance a little bit more. When there's nothing else to talk about, in terms of there is no title race, there is no other thing there. So we're not playing 2 games a week now, so that one defeat lingers all week. So I think there's a little bit of that. I think that's what's happening in England as well. I think Liverpool are being picked on a little bit just because there is no other narrative, and there's a huge amount of airwaves to sort of fill. And it just got me thinking as well about, what have previous seasons looked like around? Because the one thing that I think James and I agreed on was that there were very good reasons why there were certain failings, very human reasons.
Yeah.
Why the team didn't win. And as I say, if you'd flipped the data around, and St Johnstone had nearly 3 xg, and Celtic had like 0.5 xg, and we'd lost 1-0, I'd be really worried. I'd be like, oh, this is not good. But because it was like a normal set of data, but we just happened to lose, then I'm not as worried, sort of thing. But what it got me thinking about, the one area that we did pick up on on Tuesday was that it's a cornerstone of the way that
We hope you enjoyed this free preview from all of us here at the Huddle Breakdown. We know you have options, and we really appreciate you tuning in. To hear the rest of this episode and for much more Huddle Breakdown content, head on over to www.huddlebreakdown.com. We hope you consider subscribing. Thank you.